Today, we're going to compare two travel devices, the crowd favorite ResMed AirMini and the newer, smaller Transcend Micro 510. I'm going to talk about their different features, directly compare important information points like their size, weight, and noise ratings, and I'm going to look at convenience factors like available power sources and humidity solutions. All this so you can make that all-important choice of what will best keep you asleep when you're away from home. But I'll also chuck in my 2 cents as well at the end. Who is this guy to have such an opinion, you may ask? Well, hi, I'm Ruben from RespShop. We've been selling CPAP equipment to sleep apnea sufferers since 2008. We sell both of these machines that we'll be comparing, so there's no bias going on here. And the most important thing to us is to have happy and well-rested customers. And YouTube viewers, of course. We're also on Facebook and Instagram, so go and say hi over there to us as well. Right, let's get to these machines, shall we? I'm going to start by comparing their physical features. As you can see, they're both small, but the Micro is the smallest. The Micro is 3.6 by 3.6 by 2.4 inches in size, barely bigger than a baseball. I can fit this device in my back pocket, whereas the AirMini is 5.4 by 3.3 by 2.1 inches. So there's some difference there, but not a huge amount. And of course, you have to account for the power brick as well. Some users have had trouble with the AirMini power brick, partly because it's harder to use with an international socket adapter, and partly because it has been known to fall out of old or overused sockets due to its weight at the plug end. Talking of weight, the Micro being smaller is also a bit lighter. It's 0.48 pounds, which is about 25% lighter than the AirMini, which is 0.66 pounds. But again, both are very light machines. Also, the extra low weight of the Micro can mean that it gets pulled around a bit on the nightstand. Neither of these machines have rubberized sections for extra grip, so maybe stick it down with some strong tape, use Velcro, or get a protective CPAP mat if that is a problem for you. Where the power attaches to unit on the Micro is inset a little so that it can lie flat on a level surface when it's anchored down. Or to really step up your game, if you go with the AirMini, you can get ResMed's AirMini mounting kit, which allows you to mount the device to your headboard, or wall or nightstand, or even the mattress itself to keep things clean and easily accessible. As for noise, official levels place the Micro a bit quieter at 27 decibels compared to the AirMini's 30 decibels, but quite honestly, the noise levels for both machines are highly subjective. Some find them loud, others don't see what the fuss is all about. I personally find the Micro to be louder than the AirMini when using the same mask and same pressure. I do find that a lot of users complain that the noise of the AirMini mainly comes from the Humid X capsule holder in the tube not being airtight, rather than the machine itself. But if that's you, we have done a video on some hacks that you can do to help with this, and you can watch that if you're interested. I'll link it above me and it's in the description. And at RespShop, we've built a noise cancelling kit for the AirMini that has a few common accessories that we found can really make a difference here. I'll leave a link to that kit in the description as well. As for the Micro, it comes with a muffler that can help a bit with noise, but in short, noise levels will probably not be a deal breaker between either of these two. Either one is quite loud when you compare them to at-home machines that have more space in them for sound abatement foam. Quiet operation is one of the things that you sacrifice when using a device this small, although there may be some more noise reduction options available to the AirMini users, but at an additional cost. The mask options, though, might be a deal breaker. As shipped, the AirMini has a proprietary customized socket that will only work with the tubing that they supply, which then connects to their proprietary housing for their Humid X filters, which in turn will only work with certain ResMed masks. So if your favorite mask is not compatible, then you won't be able to use it. That is, unless you buy an adapter separately that plugs into the AirMini and allows you to use standard tubing with it. Of course, that means that you won't get the Humid X housing in your tubing, but you can use generic HME filters instead that can be plugged in line. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, HME filters are used in travel CPAPs to capture moisture from your breath when you exhale and introduce that moisture back into the air when you breathe in, to help keep the air moist without using a bulky humidifier. HME stands for Heat and Moisture Exchange, and systems like this are now pretty standard with travel devices. Humid X filters are just ResMed's name for their own branded HME filters. They're slightly more expensive than the generic ones, but they do come in 2 versions. Humid X is for general use, and Humid X Plus is for particularly cold or dry climates, as they capture more moisture than the standard ones. The Micro 510, on the other hand, uses standard tubing cuffs, so it will work with any mask that you choose, even if you're using the micro tubing option. And Transcend also have their own HME filter system that they call the Air Misc, which comes with the unit so long as you buy the more recent Micro 510 and not the previous model, which was called just Micro. Both the HumidX and the Air Misc systems use replaceable cartridges, unlike the generic HME filter kit, so that helps save on long-term costs and it reduces waste, which is nice. One thing to know about using masks with the Micro though is that masks with the tubing attachment at the top of the head, like any ResMed mask with the I in its name, sound much louder using the Micro than other mask types do. Transcend are aware of this, but it's important for you to be aware of this as well. That would be a deal breaker for you. The Micro does work with any mask, but it is known to be louder with the top of head type. Now let's talk about power options. The AirMini has a DC power converter which allows it to run on 12 and 24 volt cigarette lighters. Perfect for RVs and maybe sleeping in your car. It doesn't have its own battery options, but it will work with third-party batteries that can juice it up for a night or two if you're completely away from another power source. We've done a more detailed video on remote power options for CPAP machines, linked above me and in the description. The Micro doesn't have a DC power converter, but it does have its own battery option that has been specifically designed for use with the Micro. The battery will run it for between 14 and 16 hours. Exact times depend on your therapy settings and the environment that you're using it in. To charge the battery, Transcend offer wall socket charging, a DC converter that charges it from a cigarette lighter, and even a fold-out solar panel to keep it juiced. All of these options would need to be purchased separately, but they work seamlessly as purpose-built accessories. I'll leave links to them below. Lastly, for the physical stuff, let's take a quick look at the buttons, as neither of these devices has a screen or a dial. The AirMini has only 2 buttons. One allows you to manually start and stop the machine, and the other is a Bluetooth button for connecting it with a smartphone. Any changes to settings must be done via a smartphone app. More on that in just a bit. The Micro has the same on-off and Bluetooth buttons as the AirMini, but it also has a ramp button to activate ramp and a drying mode button. Drying mode is a feature unique to the Micro. If the button is pressed, it will blow warm air from the unit through your hose and mask for 30 minutes before switching off. This is to dry out the moisture from the night's use, which helps prevent mold and bacteria buildup and leaves them dry for the next time that you need to use them, which is a really handy feature. It's probably my favorite feature on the Micro, other than its size, of course. The comfort settings and features themselves on these two devices are not quite the same, but they are broadly similar, with the AirMini having a couple of extra auto detection features than the Micro doesn't have. Now, since both units have no screen, settings must be changed using other devices that connect to it. The usual way to do this is via Bluetooth and a smartphone. Both ResMed and Transcend have apps for both iPhone and Android that can be used to make changes to the comfort settings on the machine. Although if you need to make changes to your therapy settings on the Micro, you will need a PC. More on that in just a bit. Either of these apps can also be used to view your sleep data and submit it to medical professionals for compliance and monitoring purposes. Now, this is where the Micro 510 is much better than the AirMini. The AirMini only gives you access to the last 30 days of data, and it's quite limiting what you can see at that. The My Sleep Dash app, which is the app for the Micro, has much more thorough information, and you can select to view historical data very easily. It's also very simple to then export a report of that data for your doctor, insurance compliance, or just for your own sake to see how you're sleeping. The My Air app for the AirMini, as well as their AirMini by ResMed app, are intuitive to use and work well for the most part. Although I would say that the My Air app is better than the AirMini app itself. But the My Sleep Dash app for the Micro does have a major limiting factor, which is, like I said, you cannot adjust your therapy settings from the app. For that, you have to use some very clunky Windows-only software that is a real pain. So although you can access your data more easily, making changes that will impact those data results is harder on the Micro 510. There's also no auto ramp feature on the Micro. You have to set the ramp duration in 5-minute increments only. It's worth mentioning that you have to use a smartphone app to make any changes with the AirMini, whereas at least with the Micro you do have that extra option of plugging it into a Windows PC using a USB-C port, and again, you can't do that on a Mac. and you'll also need to buy the cord separately. Having to change your therapy settings via a cord plugged into the PC can be a pain for micro users, but it does give you an alternative means of connection if you can't or don't want to use your smartphone for some reason. The software you'd use to do this is called Transcend Mini CPAP, and as I said, this software is quite cumbersome and feels very dated. Also, neither machine has an SD card slot. They both store your sleep data internally. The AirMini holds up to a month of data that can be viewed on the app and sent to others, but data over a month old is very difficult to access. And this method of data storage means that you can't use third-party data monitoring solutions like Oscar to track your breathing and conduct other, more detailed analysis. The Micro has the advantage here, since its USB-C port means that you can extract your data from the machine and import it into software like Oscar or store it somewhere else. So if you're someone who loves to keep track of your sleep data in more detail on third-party software, even when you're on the road, then I'd suggest going with the Micro 510 over the AirMini. Otherwise, you just won't get the same insight that you're looking for. The last thing to say, even though it's touted a pretty primary feature of the upgraded Micro 510, is that the Micro 10 has 4 color options to choose from when you buy it. And it also includes a hard travel case, which is nice. There's a similar case available for the AirMini, but it must be purchased separately. I'll leave a link to that below. So that's the outside covered as well as the inside. I've tried to be as helpful as I can and address this review to various features and differences to help you decide based on your needs and pain points. The limitations with accessing long-term data and the noise of the units are primary reasons why travel CPAPs don't make great daily devices. They also don't have the longevity of at-home machines. But for when you need something on the go, both of these CPAPs are excellent choices. But if I had to suggest an overall winner, for me, it would be the AirMini still. Although if any of my more detailed considerations above jumped out to you, don't let me put you off. The Micro 510 is a solid choice for a bunch of reasons, and I do think that 3-year warranty is very nice. But if I were buying for myself, I'd go with the AirMini, mainly because it feels more like a premium machine, it's quieter overall, and its app is cleaner and more user-friendly. But that's what's most important to me, which might not be the same for you. Of course, both machines can be purchased on RespShop.com, and once you've spent $300 with us, you'll become a VIP member of our community, giving you perks like lifetime free shipping. And we have qualified techs on standby to take your call if you have further questions. But in the meantime, friends, before you set off on your travel adventure, make sure you grab your CPAP and sleep tight. Till next time.